Hey everybody, welcome back. Griffin Gaming RPG. Missed my time there for a couple seconds. I was switching my headset. I realized I had on the wrong headset. I hope you guys are doing okay. Pardon me. Welcome back. Today is November the 14th, and we're back for 10 for the Chairman. Episodes 26 and 27, maybe even 28, depending on how our time goes. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a good week. I'm glad you're able to be here and join me today as we continue our journey back in time to listen to and to discuss the vision of Chris Roberts for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, the open world universe. And hence why we're doing this. Some people say, Griff, you're going back and pulling videos from almost 10 years ago. Why? Well, because I think it's still important to remind ourselves and also inform ourselves of what Star Citizen, Squadron 42 are developed to be, according to the vision of Chris Roberts. We get to make some comparisons and see how far they're coming. We get to see if they're hitting the mark, if the target or the bullseye has moved a little bit, if it's changed. All those great reasons for why we are going back and looking at these episodes. And I'm glad you guys have decided to follow me and this journey. And speaking of following me, if you're not following, I would like to ask, if you like what you see, to definitely follow. Appreciate that as always. This show is also an interactive show. It is intended for you to be able to come in and also share your thoughts. And maybe there's information that we all would like to hear that maybe we don't know. Maybe something you read, maybe there's something I missed. Great opportunity for you to come in and join. So really appreciate the time and the effort that you guys make to be here with me. For those of you on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe. I never say that, but definitely if you like what you see, like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into it. So much to see, so much to do. Not gonna waste any time. We may get 3 episodes in this week. But let's go ahead and get back to 10 for the Chairman, episode 26, with the man himself, Chris Roberts, and we'll get things started. Here we go.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. This is where I take 10 questions from our subscribers and answer them to the best of my ability. For those of you that don't know about 10 for the Chairman and our subscribers, well, they're the portion of our community that contributes extra money every month to allow us to do additional community content, which this show would be part of. The Jump Point magazine is part of, which provides a whole bunch of content that trickles down to all the users, plus our additional shows like Now Around the Verse and some upcoming stuff we've got planned. So thank you very much to subscribers out there for allowing us the additional funds to do this kind of thing. And I'd like to say, by the way, thank you to Disco Lando. This is a Chris Robertson RSI bobblehead. So very cool. But Disco Lando was by a week or so ago and did our very first episode of Around the Verse, and he dropped this off, so thank you very much. Has a nice pride of place on my desk. Okay, so to the first questions. The first one comes from Wolfcrest, who asks, with the next great starship over, will we get an announcement about when and for how much the final ship will cost? With regards to its implementation, does CIG take over from the end of the competition to add physics and damage states of the vessel, or is that left to the team? Next great starship, season 2, question mark. Yes, there's a bunch of work that has to be done to get the ship into shape to even put it into the hangar. So the ships were brought into engine and they were nice, but there's a whole bunch of like cleanup in terms of the hierarchy. Needs to be a certain amount of physics proxies both inside and outside. It needs to be broken up in a certain way so parts can animate and open and all work inside the vehicle system we use. So there's a bunch of work. We're actually going to be working with the finalists to pay them actually to do some of the finishing work, and then we will take it in-house and finish it off here. So when that's done, we're kind of hoping to bring it out with the Mustang, which was the other ship that we sort of premiered on the Next Great Starship, and let you guys add it to your collection if you would like. As far as prices go, we haven't set it, but it probably should equate to something that would be equivalent to its weaponry. So we're obviously not going to be selling a gunship with big turrets and everything for the price of an Aurora, but we haven't finalized it. But it will be commensurate with the sort of, I guess, costs of the other ships. But it's a cool ship. And also at that time, I think we're going to see if you guys are interested in having some of the other ships in the game, because they were all pretty awesome actually. So the top 4 at least were pretty brilliant. So I could be quite happy seeing them in the game. So then Next Great Starship Season 2. Well, I think we definitely would. I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really great approach. We may make a few format changes, but I think it's a great way to sort of expose the talent out there and get some different eyes and content inside the game. So I think we will try to make this a sort of annual event. All right, next question comes.
Okay. Yeah, some of you guys may not have been around back when they did the Next Great Starship. It was a series that they did where they invited backers from the community to create a ship for the game, and the Redeemer was the one that won that year. We didn't know what manufacturer it would go under. It was just called the Redeemer. There were some other ship designs that they had that were really cool. There were a couple of people actually thought were going to beat the Redeemer, but the Redeemer ended up winning. But like anything else, even though it was created, it definitely did not meet the metrics of what CIG was using. Like they said, even their own engine for animation and stuff, it had to be converted. There had to be a lot of work done. So it took a little while before the Redeemer finally got into our hands. Ultimately, I think it turned out okay. A lot of people still kind of have some issues with the design of it, particularly what we call the curling irons or the hair, whatever you want to call them in the back. But it is an interesting design of a ship. I remember when they first showed it in an animation, and people went crazy when they first saw it because they knew it was something that was created by people in the community. I think it would be interesting for them to do another the next great starship, a season two. I forget how many ships there were in the beginning, but there were quite a few, and each week they would whittle it down to the finalists. And I think it would be now, especially now, with access to software and everything. I think that there'd be a lot of people in the community would jump on board with doing something like that. But yeah, I'm not sure how much work. I'm sure it takes some work off CIG's hands, but ultimately, there's still a lot of work that goes into it, even if the fans develop it.
From Uchu, who asks, it's been mentioned that planets will have a day-night cycle, but will planets have a seasonal cycle as well? E.g., perhaps on planets that have a winter season, or the street markets close up during the season and certain goods stop being produced or are only acquirable in reduced quantities. Well, I think that would be a good question for Tony, who is sort of heading up the Persistent Universe side of things inside the project. Planets definitely will have a day-night cycle. We are looking at the possibility of actually giving planets an orbitary cycle, which would really sort of be a seasonal cycle. I don't know about the impact of the seasonal cycle so much on sort of markets or closing up early or late. It's a really cool idea, but I think that would not be a sort of V 1.0 idea, but certainly will be sort of a kind of a detail and a nuance that we could add later, which would probably even increase the immersion. So good idea. I mean, the system handles the day-night stuff, and we're looking at, like I said, handling the sort of the orbital stuff. So you certainly will have the data to
Hey, Jolly.
that, and then the question would just be like, how does that interface with the economy? So that could be on a cool thing to add in the future list. Next question comes from Beer for the Beer God.
Yeah, day-night cycles. We already know that CIG is working on that, and seasonal weather stuff. I don't know if it's seasonal, but they are working on a dynamic weather system that factors in everything from altitude, temperature, humidity, all that great stuff. So there will be biomes that are actually dynamic, which would be actually pretty cool, right? Because that's how we'll get different things happening, like a winter storm or a snowstorm or a sandstorm. All types of crazy stuff will happen in the game. So yeah, they are looking to expand weather. I love the idea of dynamic weather though, because some of you guys already have experienced this. Sometimes you fly into certain cities and the sky's clear. Other times you fly in and it's cloudy. Other days you fly in and the visibility is much lower. I know coming into Microtech, I can't tell you how many times I've come in, and of course the one day I decide to pick a big ship is the day I have to land at Microtech at nighttime, and it's snowing and it's windy at the same time. It makes it challenging, right? Because you don't want these predictable areas. I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with having an area that's arid and dry or grassy, but it's also nice to know that if you come in those areas, there may be something that prohibits you flying in. Hence why there may be reasons to have vehicles and things like that, or landing somewhere and then having to, it's just the weather's just so bad. I know CIG has showed us that they're working on things like lightning and stuff happening in the game. So yeah, I would love to see dynamic weather kick in the game.
God. So, Beer for the Beer God asks, how do you envision two organizations going to war? How would they fight? What would they fight over? Can we make Burning Mark Skelton's golden shirt of artistic power a stretch goal? Well, I definitely like making Burning the shirt a stretch goal. That's pretty cool. I say if we get to $50 million, we burn the gold shirt. But in terms of the two organizations going to war and how would they fight, I would think that an organization would declare that it would be hostile to the other organization, and then essentially members of the organization, if they came across each other, would try and attack each other. Usually wars tend to happen over pieces of real estate, and so we are trying to add sort of persistent aspects to the game, like we've mentioned sort of an asteroid base you can fight over, or a space station you can fight over, and I would think that probably some of the organizational conflict will be directly related to sort of persistent pieces of real estate in the universe, where someone's trying to fight for control of a valuable mining operation, or someone's trying to fight for control of a jump point or something like that. So that's kind of where I think the conflict would be evolved around. Obviously, we have some stuff that we have to deal in terms of the instancing, because we can't have 2,000 people all in the same area at the same time. But I think we've got some pretty good answers for that. So that's kind of how I would see organizations going to war. Okay, next question.
That's a good question.
John.
What are some things that you guys think that orgs would go into war over in the game? Dominating an area of space is going to be extremely difficult to a certain degree. In Eve, if you don't mind me referencing Eve was a little bit easier because you could hold down access to a system at a Stargate, at a jump gate, I should say, not a Stargate, a jump gate. But with a wormhole, I think it might be a little bit different. I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. So my question is, and I've heard people say this before, oh, we're going to lock down this planet. Well, good luck to that. A planet in this game is huge. And the amount of people that you would have to have patrolling, the amount of space you'd have to protect. I'm not saying that people can't try. God bless you if you do. But if any of you guys have flown over Crusader, that's a planet. It's pretty big. And I don't know if you can keep anybody from arriving at your planet. A moon base, I could see, some type of settlement or moon. Yeah, I could see you locking down an area there for real estate, especially if maybe you've got a great area where you're mining resources or things of that nature. That I could see you protecting. But I don't know. Maybe it's a bit. Maybe I'm underestimating, or maybe people's ideas are too grandiose about what level of occupation they're going to take in the area. But I am curious about what you think orgs will fight over. Usually it is things like resources. Land and resources are usually the top two things. But then there's also ego, right? Who's the biggest dog? Who's the biggest fish in the area? So I guess we'll have to see where that lands. Don't forget, if you guys want to come in and talk, feel free to click on the Discord link, and it'll bring you into the chat room, and you can join me in the conversation while we're watching this.
Who asks, I'm loving the dogfight module this far and can't wait for more stuff. Is there a way, or a plan to develop a way, to be an observer in a multiplayer match? Specifically, will I be able to observe a dogfight, preferably a head-to-head dogfight, and be able to trail one player? Yes, we are actually on our list of things to do is spectator mode, to allow people to come into spectator mode, and we were thinking that it would be a really good way where maybe there's a couple of open clients where someone could just come in as a spectator, and we may even have sort of an auto spectator mode that we power up that could like stream to Twitch and stuff like that. Because definitely it's kind of fun. I mean, we all around here right now are watching people play the game via Twitch, and it's pretty informative, and it's strangely engrossing. But sort of auto spectator mode will do things like allow you to switch to follow different players and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. Although before anyone starts concerned forum threads, we will make sure that if that feature is enabled, it won't be in such a way that it could give away information in a competitive match that you wouldn't want to give away. All right.
Okay, we know we have spectator mode in Arena Commander now. And of course, they've always talked about this idea of being able to broadcast things. One of the reasons why we have these different monitors in different places, like in the bars, on certain ships, things like that, is that they want to be able to do some form of live feed, which will be interesting because they will probably have to put a delay, right, or something, so that people aren't able to use those as tools to get the advantage over somebody else. But yeah, I'm looking forward to them being able to quote unquote live stream things in game for us to watch.
Next question comes from Arglamauf, Arglamauf, who asks, as Star Citizen is to be a great sim, can you clarify what a sim is by your definition? Would Freelancer, for example, fulfill your definition of a sim? Many are currently concerned by the arcadiness of Arena Commander. Maybe a word from you whether it musters up to what you want it to be would help address these concerns. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, for me, it's sort of, when I think about Space Sim, I think sort of Wing Commander, Privateer,
yeah, agreed, Jolly.
Freelancer are all sort of qualified Space Sims. They just have different approaches, and to be honest with you, I would say Wing Commander was pretty damn arcadey. In fact, it's a lot more arcadey than Arena Commander is, because there was a lot more sort of shortcuts taken in terms of the simulation, and it was set up in such a way that you could just blast a whole bunch of Karathi because they were gimped, so you would feel like the hero, downing wave after wave of the enemy. And, you know, I know people go back and forth, but, you know, I play all the games, including all the other ones that are out here right now that I can play in alpha. And I'm pretty happy where we are. I think we're the most accurate on a simulation side by anyone, by a long stretch of motion. I don't care what anyone else says. I'm pretty confident we are. And then it's really just a matter of the control, input, and, you know, how that's translated into sort of the computer that's controlling the flight. And, you know, we're trying to make the game inclusive for a large amount of people. So the goal with the game is to make it pretty easy to pick up and play. And then as you get into it, get deeper into it, there's a lot of dials and knobs you can turn to make, you know, the dogfighting more interesting or give you an edge over another player that isn't as experienced. So I always liken it to being very much like StarCraft or StarCraft 2, where you can just go around and with a mouse and point and click and build units and fight people. But until you really sort of know, you know, the sort of rock, paper, scissors of all the units, and you know every keyboard shortcut, it's pretty hard for you to compete with someone that's more experienced. And I definitely think that's going to be the case in Star Citizen. I've already noticed in a lot of the forum threads, and I talked about this last week in the post that we talked
the Glaystone
flight model and everything, is that, you know, there's a lot of people at the beginning who weren't used to what we're trying to do, because, you know, all past flight sims, pretty much, including a lot of the present ones, go with a very sort of simplified atmospheric model and then sort of add some kind of space trappings like okay, I can go up or down or left or right. But they don't really simulate it to the level that we do, where we actually add, every item has its own mass and gets added to the ship and changes the moment of inertia, and the thrusters gimbal to fire at the specified directions and actually apply thrust, which changes the inertia, angular or linear, of that ship. You know, so we're not doing any cheating, just saying, oh, okay, all of a sudden we rotate by 15 degrees or 20 degrees. It all comes out of the simulation, and that gives you a much higher level of fidelity and also a difference in feel with ships, even ships that would maybe weigh the same and have the same class of engines. If one is more compact than another, then at that point it will actually feel different. It will rotate at different speeds because it has a different sort of angular momentum and a moment of inertia. So I definitely don't feel that we're arcadey. I do think that in every sort of space game or space sim, you have to make some level of you know, you got to make a call about what's fun and what isn't fun, right? So generally, space combat, in my mind, would not be anything like the way it is in Arena Commander or any other space game you play, because it would probably all be done by computers well beyond visual range, and it would be about whose computer processes fast enough to, you know, create a firing solution. But we don't like that. We like to get on the tail and sort of shoot people down and see the ships. And I definitely feel that Arena Commander does a good job of that. Is there things that can get improved? Absolutely, and that's what we're working on. We're going to make it, you know, better with everyone's help and feedback out there. But you know, I think as far as the sim goes, we're probably more sim than pretty much everything out there. I mean, you know, besides just the physics of it all and the flight model, like the ship itself, all the systems in it are individual systems that plug into that ship, and they all interconnect through power pipes and, you know, heat pipes and the CPU pipe and you know, the you know, or fuel pipe, which, you know, takes the fuel from the fuel tank to the thrusters and all the rest of them. And they all interconnect, and if one fails, it can, you know, it can affect the other one. Say if your power plant goes down or gets damaged and it reduces its power output, then everything that draws power from it may not operate, or may operate at less functionality. So it's all very system based, right? So a lot of things should just fall out of it. Like a part of your ship gets ripped out with several systems on it, they're gone. So all of a sudden, if other parts of the ship required, you know, that system, whether it was a power plant or a heat sink or something like that, they wouldn't function. But we don't have any code to say if wing is blown off, then do this. It all just falls out of the system. And so I would say we're probably pretty simish. And then the aspect is it your definition of what you think is a sim? And I think it's going to be so many people in this game. There's so many different takes on it. It's almost impossible to please everybody. But I think in the long run, if people stick with it, because don't forget, this isn't just about dogfighting, which is Arena Commander, and even right now, the multiplayer dogfighting. I mean, there are only the team mode. Should be open to most people by now, but up until now, the team mode hasn't really been open to people. So you just watch people go in, and it's a third ball. So of course, two people are fighting and not looking at you. Of course, you can come in and start shooting at them, and they're not going to be able to see you. And so it's not really a good indicator of what the combat's really going to be like long term in the universe, because the Arena Commander combat's much more sort of ultimately set to be more fast paced. Then I think the final combat will be in the universe when you're out there for real, because that has a lot more to do with your radar and your signature, a whole bunch of other stuff that you would manage, and you would have a ways to go before you got into contact with someone that you were fighting, and so there's a bunch more that happens. So Arena Commander is really sort of the first pass to get out to the straight up there, rough and tumble fighting. Work on the control inputs and the flight models and a bunch of the little stuff that we need to balance, but the ultimate game is going to have so much more, and we've built so much of systems in to allow to do that. I think the potential is immense, and I think people are going to have a lot of fun in it, beyond just dogfighting, just smuggling or trading or all the rest of the stuff. So all right, there you are. I don't know if that answered the question about being a sim, but anyway, there you go.
Okay. I got Admiral Kusanagi stepped in to join. Hey, Admiral, how are you? You there?
Hey, Griff, how's it going?
Pretty good. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people just aren't watching these videos. That seems to be the problem.
People what?
Talks about it pretty early on.
You said what now?
I said Ciara is talking about what he's doing pretty early on.
Yeah. That, again, that's why we're going back and doing these, right? I mean, I even heard some things he said here. One of the things is there's always this discussion about the balance between what we do now and the future. And I appreciate the fact that he very much is aware of a futurist position of how things would be. Like he was saying, in the future, dogfighting would probably be totally almost completely hands off as far as the human factor is concerned. That it would be basically the computers computing, and whichever one comes up with the firing solution first, that's probably what the battle would be. But then that would be boring for us just riding around the ship, letting a computer do everything. Even when we do things like voice attack, for example, I know Colossal, he has set up his voice attack in such a way that when he says it, his ship starts up, gets into whatever position he wants for takeoff, and it takes off. I had mine doing that at one point. It would raise up like 30 meters or something like that. But there was still a human factor. You know what I mean? There was still, I still had to be a part of it. And I think it's interesting when you have to try to keep that balance between how do we keep us as a game player feeling that we're a part of what's going on, but at the same time also feel like you're not in 1941 flying an aircraft from back at that time, trying to strike the balance in that. I remember watching Star Wars, the documentary for Star Wars, and Chris did kind of the same things that George Lucas did. They used a lot of old World War II footage to show what dogfighting would look like. And when we saw X-Wings and TIE fighters going at it, there was this close range fighting that still existed even in that quote unquote long time ago galaxy far, far away scenario. So it is interesting to hear he's very much aware of how things could be in the future, but at the same time, trying to strike that balance for us as players so that we actually feel like we're engaged and we have our hand in what's going on, in the world. Was something you want to say about it?
Well, I will add with the say the U.S. military back in I think it was the 70s. So when Vietnam came, like they had the F-4 Phantom, and they actually, some people might not know this, but they actually created that plane not to have guns on it.
Mm-hmm.
They said everything is going to be these missile type engagements. We don't need to put guns on fighters anymore. And then guess what happened? well, we need fighters. Oh crap! And then so they put this like cannon pod underneath the
Mm-hmm.
plane, so if they got close enough, they could use a cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the same thing as where you're looking at, all like you got the Rattler missiles that shoot out. You got it's insane. Almost reminds me of looking at the Iron Dome. Almost, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
missiles out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea that yes, okay, you have these 1v1 engagements or something similar where you just got a lot of dogfighting going on,
Mm-hmm.
and then also the realization like, well, what if I have that one, I'm just say an arrow, okay, that's its purpose. It's a light fighter, it has limited range, you have
Mm-hmm.
to fuel it more, you might need a carrier for it.
Yeah.
You're gonna have components that you're gonna have to service. There's always the question that people have always thought that you need to is there gonna be a wait time? Like, can you just turn it on and just go like a
Mm-hmm.
car?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you have to does it take, 10 seconds to ramp up the
Mm-hmm.
energy or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw, I know, like, I haven't seen any, like, other current countries have, startup procedures. Usually it's very long. Like, if you watch, I forget, was it DCS? Those, like,
Mm-hmm.
those flying games that you
Mm-hmm.
guys play, like, the
Mm-hmm.
really extensive ones?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, the Dark Knight plays stuff like that, and you have all these procedures to start up the engines, and you flip this switch to do this and that.
Right. Right.
And, I know that there was, I think, the Griffin, which is, oh, not no,
Yeah. No. No relation.
with your name there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's stuck because it's a European fighter, the Eurofighter, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts up by, like, if it's, like, on the runway, it can start up in, like, I think it's, like, it can be in the air in, like, 30 or 45 seconds. I think
Mm-hmm.
it can be in the air in 45, which is super quick for a standby fighter.
Right.
So, I don't know, and with us having to keep our equipment on because it's a dangerous situation or if there is a cooldown, these are things that, again, I think the way CR's always looked at it when he's showing it here is, like, things are gonna take time to do. So, you know, and then what is the environment going to do to my ship as well, and how can I react to that? So it's so many different things that's hitting us all at the same time. I think it's going to be great for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For some, not so much.
I remember. I remember when first time I saw a cross section of one of the ships when a wing got blown off. Right. Or in matter of fact, it wasn't even that. You know how you used to fall sometimes inside of a ship and you'd see like that whole interior, inside. And I would see all of these pipes and rails and all this other stuff. And at first, I was like, man, they're doing a lot of freaking detail, putting all this stuff in. But then then I saw a wing come off, and I said, oh, that's pretty cool. Now you can kind of see what the ship looks like, from the inside. But I was wrong. I was completely wrong. I didn't realize that those pipes and stuff were not just there for graphics or aesthetics, but that they were actually pipes and rails that really are allowing for electricity and heat and oxygen and all this other stuff. Now, I think that when this question got asked about to you, Chris, what is a sim? And the person, even Chris says, that his previous games were more arcadey. They weren't really sims. But here he says he thinks this is really pretty close to a sim. And I think that the simulation side of this is the level of detail that they're putting into the game. The fact that, and I'm not sure if the backers, I'm not all, because I'm sure there are some people who are aware, but I'm not sure if they understand that this is why it's taking time. Most games, if we were to play Everspace or No Man's Sky or even Starfield, right, a more recent game, that level of detail does not go into the ship. So wing gets blown off, that's it. And there is a hitbox, and if this happens, then that happens. And that's it. That's pretty much it. But Chris is looking at this thing from saying, if this particular electrical line goes out, what impact does it have on the reactor, the batteries, the life support system, the shields, and maybe that triggers something else here. I mean, he's creating a systematic thing for every ship in this game, and those games have to those different systems have to respond accordingly. That's not normal. That's not what's in most games that we play. So when you start saying that that's the level of detail, that no matter, I always remember the example he gave when Karamal wrote his article in Spectrum, and Chris went back and talked about the bullet that penetrates the hull of the ship and actually cuts the line of oxygen or something like that, and it started a fire. And he talked about all the variables that got hit by that one shell that penetrates, the hull. So there's a loss of oxygen, there's a system that got shut down, and a fire got started. What game does all that? Now, the thing I worry about is, are gamers really mentally, first of all, are we mentally prepared to wait for a game that delivers that? And two, once it's delivered, are gamers mentally prepared to handle that? I know there are some people who will be very excited and will look forward to that and can't wait till it comes out. But man, it seems like the loudest voice are maybe those people who don't want to wait for that. And I'm not sure how well they'll handle that later on.
I don't think they're going to be able to.
Well, they may
people
be the
now
minority.
complain about
They may be the
the learning
minority,
curve.
Admiral. You know what I'm saying? They may be the minority. Usually the loudest
Yeah, the
voice is quite
vocal
often the
minority,
minority, right? So that may be the case. And again, I know a lot of players who are excited about the prospect of that, even though it is frustrating to wait for all of that. I just responded to somebody in the comments who was saying that I had said something about, after seeing what happened to CitizenCon, let's give them a little bit of breathing room so they can finish doing what they're doing. And the person was like, they've had enough breathing room. We need to hold them accountable, And it's like, my response was, yeah, but do you want this? I said, look at the number. And I'm not throwing no shade, y'all. Look at the numbers 2 months after Starfield. Starfield's a good game, but 2 months afterward, it's already falling off. Do we want to wait 10 years for a game that 2-3 months later, nobody's, the numbers are falling off and people aren't playing it anymore? So it's a weird space. It's a unique development, unlike any other game that any of us have ever experienced. But I just want people to be aware. That's why we're going through this, to see Chris's idea for this game is much deeper than any game we've played. And it's so easy to say, oh, I've played plenty of space fighter games, plenty of games, and this is that. You have not played a game like this. There isn't anything out there like this. It's very, very different. And, I still say that 10 years ago, to spend 3 to 5 years on a game would have seemed like that's a decent amount of time. That was 10 years ago. Well, it's 10 years later. And if we have to spend 7 to 10 years or 7 to 12 years or 8 to 12 years on a game, based upon the size of the games, the depth, the scope, all the stuff that we see happening with AAA games right now, that's the way it is, And I've watched people say, oh, one of the things CIG needs is a publisher. Because if they had a publisher, they had this game out. Let's go with that train of thought. Look at every game that's had a publisher, what happened recently. Every one of the publishers recently who've pushed out a game have pushed it out because their shareholders wanted to get it out. They wanted to get it out for their quarterly report. They wanted to get it out for Christmas. The game wasn't ready. The game was broken. Terrible launches. We forget all about all that stuff until it happens. Then when it happens, we're all crying as the gamers. But it's also because the one variable that every one of those situations had, I don't care if it was Starfield, I don't care if it was Cyberpunk, I don't care if it was No Man's Sky, I don't care if it was Anthem, every one of them had one particular issue, and it was called time. Every one of them needed more time. And for some reason, gamers haven't learned that. Gamers still want to complain about time, and out of the other side of their neck, when the game comes out and it's jacked up, they want to complain about that too. All right, y'all, I'm through preaching.
I was just gonna say,
I'm through preaching.
Now you got me through for a loop there. I was watching somebody with again. They showed us the 2017 version. They said like, hey, Squadron 42's finish should come out about 2017, 2018, whatever. And they said timeout. We're not gonna do that. We have to look at we're gonna need to look at this. And everyone was all mad and then like, oh, they should have been done, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But we just saw what the changes were.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me no one's disappointed in that.
Yeah.
And we would all be like, oh, remember that game, Squadron 42 game out? Oh, yeah, it was cool back then. But, now I got, thank God I got Cyberpunk 2077 and the other thing I hate, what Starfield. So I'm just glad that they're able to kind of hit the brakes, reevaluate things, and say, is there anything we can do to make this a little better? I'm not saying like I want to be an extra 10 years older than I am now.
Right.
But it's certainly, I think what they saw was stuff in the technology that was out at the time and said, hey, we can actually do this and we can make this look better. And sound better and play better and get the vehicle. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
The Star Engine was amazing. They probably had stuff with the Star Engine they were like tweaking, or they might have even. I mean, because they've been like just inventing stuff left and right,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably were like, "Hey, look what we can do now with this. Does that help us with this? Yeah, I mean, we could just roll. Just rolls down the hill and what it can change and how it can improve the game."
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what it is, and I'm looking forward to it. I think everybody here who's talked to me knows that I've been really pushing for Squadron 42 for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not like being upset because Squadron 42 is delayed. I wanted like a good product, and
Yeah.
I want it to be a new product than what's currently out. Like I'm playing Fallout 4 right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not gonna play Starfield because it's like Fallout 4
Mm-hmm.
and it's just in space. It's the same graphics practically. It's the same. I think it's maybe slightly improved base mechanics. And but but it looks the same. And I want something that's better.
A little different. Yeah.
I want something that looks like
You know,
2024.
maybe if you had not played Star Citizen, you might have considered it. You know, for some people they've said that, right? Because a lot
Oh
of people
yeah,
said if I hadn't played it,
definitely.
I probably would have. But they've gotten used to what Star Citizen is offering. You know, I want to say something what Glade was saying here. Yeah, Glade, I agree with you. A lot of times when we play a game, once we've done it, we finish it. That's it. I know a lot of people who are playing Starfield who are still playing it. They're 200, 300, 400 hours in. From my understanding, the main storyline was okay, but the side missions are really, really great. And my point is, if we're going to compare, let's compare that with Squadron, not Star Citizen. I'm hoping that Squadron 42 has replayability, that it's a very in-depth game, that it's not me cutting it out in 20 hours or 16 hours, but that it is a very well-done game that also allows me to go back to it and actually play it again and maybe do some different things and get more playability out of it. So that's what I'm hoping for Squadron 42. As far as the persistent universe, you guys have heard me say this before. I always expected the persistent universe to take at least 10 years. So my feelings are not hurt in any way in relation to the persistent universe. What was delayed was Squadron 42. And so, to Admiral's point, we do want Squadron to be a good game. You know, and again, the games that I mentioned were all standalone games. I didn't mention any MMORPGs. So I want to make sure we distinguish Squadron 42 from the persistent universe from Star Citizen. And my point still is that look at the history of all those AAA, well-established studios who knew what they were doing. Look at the history of what happened with all this is just recently too, because back in the day we weren't getting all this crazy stuff happening. But all those games, the big issue with all of them was that they needed more time. My understanding is that Cyberpunk right now is a lot of fun to play, and the people are really happy with it. But it took them another 2 years to get it there. You know, it took them 2 more years to get it there. They still couldn't produce the console version that they wanted to produce, even after all that time. Starfield, 7.5 years to get that game out. And that game has nowhere near the depth and fidelity that this game has. But it still took them 7.5 years from a company that's been around for 25 years. So, you know, am I doing a little bit of defending for CIG? Yeah, I am. Because we got to keep it real. Yes, have they had their mistakes? Have they had their faux pas? Have they tripped? Yes, like any other company would do. I got to move on because I'm stuck on this one and I've got to get to the next episode. But yeah, it's good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
Next question comes from Dusk Breeze, who asks, in the latest Terra Gazette, a smuggler dumped a live cargo container which had been damaged and leaking O2. Will damage to cargo containers be modeled in game and possible loss of cargo if it requires an atmosphere? Well, all the cargo containers will be items in the game, and so you can damage any item. And then I would guess, if you had a container and the damage that it did would leak O2, you could probably sped up specific stuff to like have a particle effect where it looked like gas was expecting. So we do the damage. I don't know if you want. We're not at the point now where if it had an atmosphere in the cargo container and there was a stowaway inside it, and then you damage it and the atmosphere linked out, the person would die inside. We're not there yet. Although that wouldn't necessarily be that hard to do, but we definitely do have damage modeled on all items, and so it's really just a matter of doing the art and the effects once it gets damaged. So there you go. Odysseus asks, the 2 maps...
That's an interesting idea, the idea of cargo containers, leaking and stuff. That takes the detail to a whole nother level. I'm glad they're not working on that one right now. That'll be one of those things to me that comes later, if they even do something like that.
We're released with Arena Commander are beautiful and full of detail. I'm wondering, are these maps representative of what the PU will look and feel like with all the rocks and debris, or will there also be large spans of open space and that we need to cross to get from point A to point B? It seems like the best way to show how big the universe is would be to have a lot of nothing. Yes, in the persistent universe, the Arena Commander maps are a sort of smaller scale map. So there was one big technical move we haven't done yet in the engine, which we're in the process of getting ready to do and be doing some early work on, which is moving from single precision floating point to double precision floating point. And single precision floating point, once you get beyond about 8 to 10 kilometers from the origin, you start to have some precision problems in small distances, like under a meter. In double precision, you don't, because it's obviously a much larger range. And our goal is to have a system map be one unified map, so it's not split up. So the address space in the system is the same from one side to the other side, and that will come with the double precision. And in that case, what's going to happen is you're going to have large areas of not really a lot, and then you'll have clumps of detail like the asteroid field or the stuff that you see in Broken Moon or Dying Star. So it'll be a combination of nothing and then sort of high levels of detail with some beautiful backgrounds. There you go. And it'll be much bigger. I mean, we're talking about, we won't go fully accurate because that's getting really big and would be boring, but we're probably looking at our system sizes to be plus or minus 1 million kilometers versus plus or minus 8 to 10 kilometers. Okay, next question comes from EdTech, who asks, you have stated there will not be a monthly cost to play once the PU is live. Persistent Universe, for all those that don't know what PU is. But will we still be able to subscribe as we do now? Will there still be a separate store for subscribers and Jump Point Magazine, etc., or will subscriptions be turned off and we lose those perks? No, you know what? I think we probably would maintain the subscription stuff, mainly because that's really about community content and it doesn't really affect gameplay. And it's a great way to sort of allow, have us be able to sort of give a lot more content back to the community. So for now, I mean, unless we were doing so amazingly well on the Persistent Universe that we just didn't need the extra money, I would think that we'd probably keep it up because I really like being able to do a lot of content for everyone. It's nice to be able to sort of film all these things and have a whole team work on doing a 60-page monthly magazine, because I think everyone out there geeks out on as much as we do here, so we'd love to share it. But unfortunately, doing all that at the level we do it takes time and money, and so that's kind of what subscription's for. So I think it will continue. All right, next question.
That's a good one. People have asked before about whether or not CIG will ever. We've had this conversation off and on before, and nobody really knows. Will they still sell ships? Will they still? We know they're going to do starter packages. Will subscriptions continue? Will they do cosmetic items? Blah 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 blah. And Chris says, at least in this particular case with the subscriptions, he doesn't see a problem with subscriptions going. And he very specifically says because he doesn't see it affecting the game and gameplay, which I think is cool. Stays outside of that realm. Admiral, I know we talked about this the other day, if they ever decided to sell ships at what level. We know they'll do starter packages because there has to be an entryway into the persistent universe. I said that if they did an annual or, like an Invictus and a IAE, that would be sufficient for me if they decided to do that. But then again, if they decided not to, that would be sufficient too. What do you think as far as the funding? Other than Squadron 42 for the persistent universe to keep it going.
To keep it going after it's out, or
yes,
just continue in general?
No, after it's out.
I honestly think they should do a subscription model.
A subscription model.
And then they can sell the ship.
Now they've said that they will not. They said they will not do a subscription model. So you can say that, but they've said they are not going to charge us a monthly like ESO or anything else. They've said that.
I heard Squadron 42 is coming out in 2017. Play it yet?
Okay. So you think
I'm just saying they might not say that. If they can just continue what they're doing now and then play, like if the expectation is like, okay, how much money did Starfield make when it came out, like $1 billion or something like that? So if they can get that from Squadron 42, they're good for some time.
They'll be good for a little while.
And they can just trickle in the money with ship sales and stuff. People want to buy it up front, like we've been currently doing, and then or just just slow boat it and buy it in game. I think the idea of buying a ship with some type of insurance on the web from the website is still um, something that someone 5 years from now will probably prefer to do than having to play the game for 2 years or 6 months to get the
Mm-hmm.
same ship.
Mm.
I think there's a huge benefit in that.
Yeah.
Um, but I really think there's a I don't know how they're going to work with like people with 20 accounts. I just don't. Maybe they're just already because of the issues that this thing is getting. Maybe it doesn't matter because there's just gonna be so much time that if you want to try managing 20 accounts or even 10 accounts with all the time that's required to do stuff, go ahead, go at it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know right now people are concerned about if I only have 1 hour time, like during the weekend or at night, like what can I do? So
Yeah.
if you get 5 accounts that's all the time you have. I don't know why you have 5 accounts.
Yeah.
But funding wise, I mean, they could do that for a bit, but I think they should probably just continue the ship sales. I'm just hoping that I just don't want Squadron 42 sales to be the reason that the PU has funding.
Exclusively.
Like I kind of
Mm.
want to separate. It is the same
Some other
company.
model, some other money model coming in as well.
There is the
Revenue
same
stream.
company, and they're using funding. I think the idea here would be to use the say they made $500 million, which I think is actually low for Squadron 42.
Right.
And you use that for the second and third stories or chapters or games. It's
Mm-hmm.
a three-part series, and then those portion of that money would go to fund the PU. And the idea is to get all those people who love those RPGs to play the PU. And I think that's the question is that you're asking me is how after those three games are out, how are they going to continue making money so that we're actually getting good
Well,
products?
let me run
So
this past you. Here's something that we never talk about. There is nothing to stop CIG from taking on investors. Everybody keeps thinking like
I'll buy stock right
everybody,
now.
well, I'm saying everybody keeps thinking that this is about us funding it. We're funding this part of it. But once Squadron is out and once the Precision Universe is out, first of all, there's going to be a tremendous amount of interest in Cloud Imperium games as a business. And I would dare think that if Squadron 42 Episode 1 is a success, they will have people banging on their door. Not us, but I'm talking about real investors to put money into that company because of the return on investment. And so our job technically would be no longer needed. We have funded the development process of building the company, helping to, staff, all that other stuff over this last 10, 11 years. But they could go to a full corporate business model, still maintain their integrity of what they're doing. But at that point, we already know they have an investor who is supporting them for their upcoming marketing. We already know they've opened that door once. There's nothing that says that CIG could not do that exact same thing with, as you mentioned, real shareholders. And that would do it. Takes the
Do
monkey
you
off our
feel
back,
though?
guarantees them
Do
that
you
money.
um feel that um that that you want like I guess the corporate I hold like EA. Do you want like the corporate EA and the way
No,
they
no,
make
no, no. You got to
money
remember,
and
EA is a publisher. There's a big difference, even though they're still a game
or
developer
like
too.
or
But
because
they've
like
already
Big
got
has done it.
investors.
Big has done it like completely different.
Admiral,
I feel
they
like we should
have
just stick with
investors.
that.
They have investors. People assume that there are no investors. There are people who are invested in CIG. There were some people in the beginning that they gave them a return on their money and they got them out, but there are still people who are investors in the company. I'm not saying it has to be a full blown boardroom, big monolith thing. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm just saying that if Chris decided to open the door, like they have the one family who is supporting them for the advertising, who gave them like
Right.
45
But that's just
million.
Squadron 42, right?
Yes, for the marketing. Right.
Yeah.
Now those people are going to get an ROI, right? They're going to get a return on their investment. You and I know that. They didn't just throw that money in there for the pot. They're going to make some money back, okay? And they're gambling that it's successful, and they're going to get some return on their money. All I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if the game is successful, if they decided to say, we're going to offer this up into some form of shareholding. Now, I don't know what that is, whether that's 5 people who want to give them, for 400 million each or 50 million each. I don't know what it is. All I'm saying is that could be another form of revenue for them that moves beyond the concerns that we have for how are they going to continue the game going. That's all I'm saying. Maybe they'll offer the players something. I don't know, but I don't think that they're going to go back on their word on the subscription model. That has been there from the very beginning. Now, some people will say it's not the same as an F8. We're talking about two different things here. There's a huge dynamic of people who've invested all this money, and then now you're going to lock them out by telling them, yeah, you've bought an Idris and a Javelin, but if you don't pay me $14.95, you can't play the game. That is not going to happen, guaranteed. Okay, so that's why I'm saying I think that the subscription model for entry is not going to happen. Now, if there's a subscription model for being able to get a monthly flare, some virtual stuff, continuing to get the Jump Point magazine, producing the TV shows, I think they'll still do that, and I have no problem with them doing that because that's optional. It's just an optional thing. But to your point, they've got to find some other. I don't think they just want to rely on the success of Squadron 42 as a revenue maker. Now, you and I have talked about the fact that there's the software licensing, all the other stuff they're building. Obviously, they're building that stuff up for branding, right? What do they call it? What is it called? Star Hair, Star Cloth, Star Engine. That's all for marketing. You know what I'm saying? So that people will be able to license that stuff out. It's no different than what Unreal Engine's doing with Nanite and everything else. They could very easily do that as well. And then I think Captain Jones suggested even the idea if they went to something like, did you say mobile games? I think Captain Jones, something like that. There are two first person mobile gamings that make 500 million a quarter. Yeah, we were talking about that just on microtransactions. Yeah, I mean, who knows what they could do with the franchise? You know what I'm saying, Admiral? There's so many ways they could go and still stay within the Star Citizen umbrella, and still generate revenue. But we'll see. Give me 1 second here. Stinger123, thank you for that follow. Kinsierra Bakan, thank you for the follow as well. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. All right, let's wrap this one up and we'll jump into the next one.
Memphis Rythorn asks, recently there has been an interest in a program called Voice Attack, a program where you can voice command functions, target nearest enemy, reroute power to starboard shields, eject. By using the program, we can easily make some of the more complicated controls easier simply by using a voice command. Do you have any plans to implement your own version of Voice Attack, or do you think it is possible to work with the creators of Voice Attack? Good question. Seen the videos, they're awesome. Yes, we're actually investigating that right now because we're reaching out to the Voice Attack people, and we kind of think that would be something that'd be really cool to integrate into the game because it definitely makes the sim aspect of the game more accessible when you can sort of say decouple, G-safe off, and do a bunch of other things that normally you have to click through or search for your keyboard. And it's certainly, you can see it affected the combat ability of the various people that were showing it off. Good job out there for the community for demoing that. But yeah, we thought that was super cool. So yeah, we're investigating it. All right, last question comes from Poison Taco, who asks, would sustained damage in fights prevent you from landing on a planet? For example, if you get into an engagement and lose panels, wings, or other parts of your ship, would that be harmful for re-entry and atmospheric flight? So that's a question we've debated on the design side. I think what we assume is that if you can get into the orbit of the planet and you can sort of communicate and request for permission to land, that we assume even if your ship's pretty badly shot up and damaged, that they get you down there, and then we see the sequence, and then you're down on the landing pad, and then of course you're gonna have to get it fixed. May not be able to take off until you've got all that stuff fixed. But we probably wouldn't make it so someone would show up in orbit and they'd just be stuck there and have to eject or something. Who knows, in later stages, not V1, but like as we get further into development, when we actually maybe have some free flight down on the planets, whether that would be effective and the damage would affect it. It probably would, because it will affect it in space. Okay, well that's it. That's the 10 questions for this week. Thank you all for listening. I want to thank all the subscribers out there for enabling this, all the backers for letting us make this hugely ambitious game. It's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. And there's a lot of really great stuff to come. So stay tuned, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Okay, this episode's knocked out. That one's done. I guess Admiral, he answered his own question, right? Because in the beginning we were going to be brought down by computers, but he says later on when they add at real free flight, then there would be some impact, right, for landing on a planet. Oh, he might have stepped away. Okay.
I'm here. I'm just trying to figure out what he was just talking, like if you could land if your ship's messed up, right?
Yeah, because remember originally, if you were coming into a planet to land, you would have called the tower and they would have landed you. You wouldn't have flown in. But they did leaps and bounds past that now. So now we are at the place where you can free flight in. So I guess when things like the airlines, dynamic weather, wind, and all the other stuff, now there won't be this automatic landing thing. There is a chance you could crash if your ship is jacked up enough. Now, I guess that's what will be in the future. So
yeah, so like the pricing model, they said something in the past, but things could possibly.
Wait a minute, you lost me.
Like the pricing model, which they said something before, in the future it doesn't matter because things have changed.
The pricing model.
I'm pulling the pricing thing. No subs over here.
I don't know why you keep thinking that they're going to do that. Okay, let me ask you. You genuinely think that they will throw a $14.95 monthly subscription on this game? That there's a possibility.
I didn't say $14.95, but
whatever. $9.95.
I want people have 40, 50 accounts because I know I've met a person. I know a person with 50 accounts.
Wait. You're pigeonholing that to one particular thing. I'm asking you across the board. You think CIG will charge all the backers a monthly fee to play the game?
For the persistent universe chocolate they need, sure. Yeah.
But you really think they'll do that? Wow. Okay.
Well, nobody else is. I mean, it depends how many people are. I mean, I guess I don't know how many employees they're looking to have in, say, 5 years, and I don't know.
I don't think they'll exceed what they have. They're looking to have 15.
That's a big one right there.
No. They have 1,200 employees roughly now, and they said they were looking to make 1,500. And again, like I told you, Bethesda only used 400 people to do Starfield. So if they got almost 4 times that amount, that's a lot of people.
How many do you think they'll need to keep on when this thing is done? Is the question.
I have no idea.
That really comes down to the question.
I have no idea. That's a good question. Because
they need to keep pushing stuff out. And then, like you and I have talked about, and you've said here in the thing, the idea is they could say it's released with 10 systems or 20 systems, and it takes them X amount of years to get the other 60 out. So the question is, how much money do they need to actually keep popping these systems out on a regular basis, and not just one a year?
So much of their money has gone into getting the company off the ground, not sustaining it. So that's hard for me to describe. If I were to say out of the however much money they've raised over almost $600 something million over the 10-year period, I would almost barter that 60% of that money. Sure, 60% of that money went toward to the company itself getting started, real estate, all that other stuff. I'm not so sure how much would be needed then. That's a good question. Once the game is out, you will need less staff. That's true. We would be landing like Starfield. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's funny, Captain Jones. The landing like Starfield is cool. The problem is why it's not cool is because we have games like No Man's Sky and Star Citizen where we land on our own, and Elite, right? Because even if you remember when Elite first came out, when we first went to Moons and Planets, there was kind of a automated way of landing when you came in. It wasn't completely free fly. It changed over time. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm in Fat Loot. Yeah, okay, Gladestone. I wish I was. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this next episode.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode.
Don't forget, if you guys want to come in and chat, feel free, click on the link. You can come in and join us.
Of 10 10 for the Chairman. For those of you who have not watched this show before, this is where I take 10 questions from our subscribers and answer them to the best of my ability. For those of you who don't know about our subscribers, that's the subset of our community, our backers that have generously put up money every month to allow us to do an extra degree of community content. So this me answering questions here, doing the Jump Point magazine.
Yeah, the link is on the page right there, Gladestone.
In-depth behind the scenes material
on the Twitch page
around the verse and a bunch of other sort of community sort of background stuff. So sort of the inside Cloud Imperium reports and all the rest of stuff. So thank you to the subscribers for allowing us to do all this extra stuff, because it's really great to show you the inside of how we're making Star Citizen. Okay, so let's get to the first one, which comes from Raishius, who asks, I am wondering about the ability to tune our ships. I know there will be a racing aspect in the game since the M50 and 350R are classified as racing, but will we be able to fully customize engines and tune our ships such as we would tune our cars to get the maximum performance out of them? So yeah, the short answer is yes. We're actually working on a whole sort of racing aspect right now. That will be another part of sort of the Spaceflight Arena Commander, where you will get to fly and race and have time trial stuff, which I think will be pretty cool. And we're also going to allow the tuning, which we've talked about before, how you can sort of overcome.
Hey Archie, how are you?
Whether it's guns or thrusters and stuff like that. I think we've had an engine tuning kit, which was one of our recent stretch goals we just hit. So yeah, that's all long-term meant to be part of the game, and we're actually going to try and get some of that in earlier. One of the big goals for me anyway is to try and get more of the items, like various equipment that you can use out there, along with more of the base ships out there for people to fly around in, especially when sort of the multiplayer combat happens, and also when we have the racing part of sort of the Arena Commander, because then it will really allow people to understand like the sort of trade-offs and balances that you get with your items and equipment, and balancing your energy and weight and all the rest of the stuff, which is all there. It's all in the system, but you don't really appreciate it right now because there's one default set of equipment on the 3 dogfighting ships that you use, and actually in some of the items weren't set up. So like the 300i currently, that'll be fixed, has like way too much power out of its power plant. So like it's always got way more power than all the items can use, which it doesn't make sense. That just was like something left over from when people were testing stuff. They wanted to check all the things were working, and it never got fixed. So that gets fixed. That's why we're doing the early testing anyway. So I think that will be fun, and I'm hoping people will actually have a cool sort of mini game tweaking things. And also balancing things on the fly. All right, next question.
This is obviously the early days when Chris Roberts did not have a stylist. As you can see, he got out of bed and he's got the little alfalfa thing going on in the back of his hair there. I'm surprised nobody caught that on camera while they were recording. Anyway, Gladestone stepped in. I'm not sure, Glade, if there was something you want to toss in. I see you're muted. If you're just hanging out, that's fine too. Stunner, I see you're here as well. So again, if you guys want to jump in, feel free. It'll be interesting to see if what they do. Racing has been growing more and more with Star Citizen, and I am curious to see. I get with some of the stuff they've been talking about with engineering and tuning that they've been talking about on ships, but I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with racing. Some of you will remember in the early days, we used to be able to do things to affect our components. They've kind of taken all that away. Some of you might remember even quantum drives used to overheat back in the day, and they kind of got rid of that. But I am curious to see, like for racing and stuff, what they'll do for performance, if there are things that the pilot can do to push their ship a little bit more. Maybe it'll mean that their component will wear out, or there's a risk of burnout or something like that, if they want to get a little bit more edge. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. Yeah, I'm curious to see what that's going to be like. Okay. All right. Muted because I didn't see other channels and didn't want to be rude. No, you're in the right channel. So, if there's something you want to share, but if not, no problem. All right. Griff. Hey, Stunner, how are you?
Good, man. Hey, real quick, I think the subcomponents are really where this kind of stuff is going to
Yeah,
shine,
yeah,
especially when you're talking about racing. I mean, the best racing subcomponents could have a very, very high likelihood to cause a burnout, like even during a short race or something, which would be really cool.
yeah. It would be, and it would also force, how can I say this? It would force the economy side of it too, right? Um, because you need to be able to have some of the reasons why you need to replace things, right? Wear, burnout, whatever the case may be. And if the ship is just static, then once you've got the ship, that's it. Once you've got the components, that's it. But I am curious to see what they'll put in there in regard to racing, because right now it's your adjustment is for weapon power, shield power, engine power. But in the racing context, are weapons and shields a factor anymore? Maybe they will be. I don't know. But I am curious, like you said, if they do subcomponents, what other mild things a pilot can do, and it also has to be accessible to do with like, how do you do it while you're racing? You know what I mean? Um,
Well, that's where I think it'll be really interesting because it could get into pit crew gameplay. So you have your
yeah,
ships already for some
yeah,
of the big races that take extra vehicles and things like this.
yeah,
So this now talks to like engineering gameplay, how fast they can get you back into the race,
yeah.
and how much you can carry with you, or how much do you carry with you for your
Oh
pit
boy,
crew.
that would be interesting. Pit crews. Wow. I've watched. Well, God forbid you've got a ship that's damaged. And he's trying to land at a high speed coming into a pit. I don't know. I may have to wait inside until they tell me that you're on the ground. I don't know. Be kind of interesting. But okay, I'll buy that for $1. Let me ask one other question too, because I didn't touch on this earlier. They mentioned about the voice attack. Do you use voice attack at all? Do you use any type of voice thing, HCS packs or anything like
Yep.
that?
I'm embarrassed to say I own it, but I have not yet hooked it up. I've never used it.
Okay, you haven't used it. Okay, all right, cool. I have, and I need to. Every time there's big patches and changes, I let it go for a while till things get stable. And I said I was going to wait till 4.0 to get back in, but I actually miss it. But it is interesting to see whether or not if CIG will create their own voice command system within the game, or because he kind of said it vague. He said it was figure out ways to incorporate it into the game. So I don't know if that means like what they've done now, where they've allowed companies like HCS and Voice Attack to provide it, like they've given them the API and they can, it works with the game, or whether CIG will do their own. I'm not sure that they need to. Third party doesn't bother me with something like that. You know what I mean? I don't mind that there's other companies that will produce it, and as long as it works well with the game, I'm fine with that. But to have it all integrated into the game would be easy and nice too for people who want to use it. But we'll have to
Yeah,
see. We'll
yeah.
have to see what they come up with.
Well, plus Chris could put in subliminal messages in there too, like buy more spaceships.
Yeah, yeah, right. I see Glade is here too. Glade, you there? Okay, he had unmuted, but maybe he's working. I'm not sure if he's doing something. I think he said he was off today. All right, we'll go ahead and go.
I'm on.
Oh, okay. Was there something you
I'm
want to say? Was there something you want to say, or are you just sitting in?
No, I just unmuted. That's all.
Are you just sitting in? Okay. All right. Let's see the next question here.
It comes from Bayor the Red, who asks.
By the way, this
will
is
there
when
be more-
Bayor was not working for CIG. This is when he was a backer, and later on he got hired.
Specific things hidden throughout the persistent universe. Things that don't necessarily have a monetary value but will add depth to the galaxy story and the game itself. Like the discovery of a long-lost derelict ship, the cause of the extinction of a civilization, or the source of a Zhan religious tradition. And if so, will these things be unique, meaning only the person who finds it will have it? So that's a great question. We are definitely planning on having sort of lore building, universe building things out there. So, a derelict ship, alien artifact, all that kind of stuff. And I think, in some cases, there will be persistence with this stuff. So there'll be a limited amount of items. So maybe there'll only be one of one thing, and maybe there'll be 10 of another thing. But there'll definitely be these sort of things that will pep around. But essentially, everybody won't have, the Ark of Truth themselves, if you know what I mean. So we'll try to sort of make it so there's a certain amount of artifacts and stuff that you can discover and use, and some will be unique, and then some will sort of not be one-offs, but they'll be one of a set kind of thing. And I think it'll be pretty. It should be pretty cool. We're going to definitely try and have this sort of stuff for the salvage and the explorer gameplay and mechanic down the road. Okay.
Do you guys think that they'll put lore items in the game that will, you know, how you can have like antiquities? You know, you can have stuff that actually gets sold and auctioned, and you know, some people will keep it, other people will use it as a form of making money. I mean, what do you guys think about stuff like that? Items and lore pieces and things like that that people can find.
I'll let somebody else go first if they want.
Well, looks like you're next. You're first.
All right. Well, that just brought me straight to the episode from TNG when the collector like grabbed Data, and he had all these one of a kind things, and Data was able to kind of get away. But I think that'd be kind of interesting for people because they've already showed like, hey, you can get this green thing for a million space bucks, or you can just steal it. So it would be interesting to see if like there was stuff that was like more valuable than that, because I guess it's kind of valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what's out there really, so that people can like, you can go into my quote unquote secure, museum room, like it's undisclosed location, and just like,
Yeah.
I'll bring you over, Griff. I'll have to put you in a blindfold.
Take a look at it. Okay, show me how to get in. Yeah. You know, it was cool. That was a good example. You used that artifact that they showed in the demonstration. It was a piece of something, right? And so that's the other thing too. You could have the lore built around some ancient something that was broken into 12 pieces. You know what I mean? And they're scattered somewhere in the verse. And there will be some people who will do their best to acquire all of it, most of it, and some of it, and it could have value, literally it could be worth a lot of money, whether it be on the market or the black market. It'd be really interesting to see what they come up with in the lore that drives people, especially people who are into the archaeology or lore side of the things, to be able to go in and make that a part of their gameplay. Good stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think they will and they should do that. I think they should also, and they will probably also, based on some things they've already done, take elements that we put into the game through playing it as a sandbox and make items out of those. Just think about, if it was last year at IAE, they had a plaque on the wall downstairs that mentioned some individual players and organizations that participated in events. Think about like if something like that became an in-game item and the whole thing was that it was stolen. And like, you have to find it. If you found it, you could have it displayed in your, your base or something like that. That'd be really cool. Or, you could give it back to the, IA or the UEE for money or whatever.
Yeah.
They could do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting for sure.
Okay, next question comes from Deathstroke, who asks, I have been wondering what happens if we get in a position where we can't afford to replace a part on our ship. Say I have a 325A, I'm down on my luck and can't afford a new replacement wing. However, a dealer has a wing from another ship that I can afford. Can I attach that wing on my ship? And further than that, is there a fail state if I cannot afford it? I mean, that's a good question. I'm not sure that we're going to be salvaging wings and parts off other ships. I mean, essentially, if your ship's damaged, you'll bring it down to the repair shop, say, on a planet, and then it will cost so much money to repair it. I think we sort of discussed to a certain level that there potentially would be a case where you could take a loan out to fix things or do stuff on your ship if you don't have enough money for it, and then at a certain point you wouldn't be able to get any more, and if you still don't pay that off, then people come after you to get it from you. And then at that point, you may not be able to fly your ship, but perhaps you can take a job being a pilot for someone else or doing some mundane job for someone else to earn enough money to go and fix your ship, which is kind of what you would do in the real world. So that's kind of our thinking as far as that goes. Okay, next question.
All right, so you don't have to put yourself on the street there, Stunner. If you need to get your ship fixed, just want you to know that there will be a way for you to make your money.
That's a load off.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the different things that people think about the game. And I know the idea is cool, but they're obviously not thinking about, again, that wing that you're talking about. You can't take that wing off of the Comet and put it on the Anvil, Hurricane. It doesn't work that way, Also, I'm glad that CIG has talked about damage versus destruction a lot more, because I think when people play the game now, until Soft Death came in, everything was about destruction, and players are starting to understand that it isn't about destroying ships as much as disabling and damage, and that gives greater life to the game, brings in the economy of repair and replacement and all that other good stuff too. So um, it's interesting. A person wanted to do surgery on their plane and put a wing on, but that's not going to happen.
Comes from Cloud Dragon, who asks, what ideas are being fleshed out for various alien ship flight behaviors, specifically single-seater ships? Will the dogfight module incorporate other aliens in the future besides the current Vandal, and how will they feel different? I think we just showed the Jean Scout this past weekend, and that's an example of another alien ship that we're actually in the process of making sort of hangar and dogfight ready, so we can put it in and essentially have it fly around and be something we can fight against, and just try out different like feelings and models and dynamics on ships. Our plan is actually to use the Arena Commander as a sort of module, as a test bed for the human ships, and even the a good portion of the alien ships before they have to go into position units, which I think will be pretty good. I think with the Jean, we've talked about the fact they're much more maneuverable and much more a sort of 6 degree of freedom kind of ship. So that's in progress. So check back later in Arena Commander and see how that's going.
Chris's hair is driving me crazy. Do you guys ever, I am curious about what other alien ships are going to be in the game. I know that right now, we'll talk about this on Thursday, there has been a leak about a new Gatak ship that is coming out. I got a chance to take a glance at it earlier today. It looks pretty interesting. Do you think that they'll give us more alien ships for us human players? Or do you think they'll keep them on the NPC side? What do you guys think?
Well, originally I thought they would be very limited, especially until a later date after release, when maybe, expansions or DLC or something, they brought more alien NPCs and everything to the game. But I mean, the fact that, and who knows if the leaks are right, but with IE coming up, and it just seems like they are making more ships.
Yeah.
And it might sound like an insult, but I don't mean it to be at all. It's actually a compliment. Like, I really like how CIG does alien ships, because in a lot of space games, this is just my opinion, but I feel like alien ships are usually they're just ships like any other ship, but they're the cool looking ones. So everybody wants an alien ship because it's the best looking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that alien ships in Star Citizen aren't cool looking. They definitely are, but they really feel alien. Like, I don't like a lot of the alien ships, like once I actually get in them and try to fly them, things like that. But that's how an alien ship should be, because we are humans, even though we're humans in the game, but so they should feel really alien. So I just hope I don't have a problem with them bringing lots of them in if that's what they want to do, but I hope they take that to the flight model also, and they fly differently than all of our regular human ships do.
Yeah.
So you have to actually really get good at doing it.
I think there should be something different like that kind of makes them special. And if they want to just hold us to NPCs, that's fine. Like we're getting like the human, quote unquote, human variants of these alien ships, and I kind of feel like they, I wouldn't give another, even if I was an ally to them, I might not give them like the best stuff we have. There's always like a level of equipment that you want to have, like the newest software or something like that. I would like to see, now we're getting this different type of like mini jumping where I can turn off my systems and then jump to a planet. I would love it to see if like Xeon ships did that, but they actually went into like a cloak, so you don't know where the hell they went, and they just blink someplace else. I think that'd be kind of cool. Because right now all the technology is the same. It just doesn't make any sense besides like different thrusters.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's an interesting perspective about when you have different alien races, what their levels of advancement are, right? And you can either say that they are very close in the sense of their technology, or you can say that there's someone who may be leaps and bounds ahead of someone else. If you guys remember on the IAE commercial last year when Jax went to the vendor on Pyro, and the guy had the Vandal engines, or the Vandal parts rather. That raised a question to me, and the question was, are they compatible with human ships, or were they compatible with ships like the ships that are produced by Asperia? I'm saying that because of what you just said, Admiral. There is a lore reason for why we have some alien ships. We don't have pure alien ships. Even the Banu Defender has been designed to be for humans. My question would become, what would those Vanduul parts be for? Because if they were to say that, you could put those Vanduul parts in a MISC ship, I would not like that personally. Would I like it though if for somebody who maybe bought the Asperia, bought the blade, and they wanted to convert it, and that would be the type of part that would go in that ship? That lore-wise would make way more sense to me. So I'm curious to see, what they're going to do with alien ships. I don't mind the replica idea that Asperia makes these replicas. And I think that if we do acquire alien ships, like for some reason, Admiral, to your point, let's just say I found an abandoned Xi'an ship out there. My question at that point would be, is it compatible for humans to use? And if it's not supposed to be compatible for humans to use, is there a way to convert them? If there is, then make that a part of the economy in the system too. We've got to have it towed back to a Cousin Crows, and I've got to be willing to pay them to convert it so that a human can use it. I'd love that level of depth more than, there's a Xi'an ship, I can jump in it, knowing that Xi'an are entirely different race. And like you said, there's a technology you said that's available. Maybe their ships, we know they have that levitation thing going on in their ships, right? And that's like a level of technology that goes a little further than where the humans are. If they're so leaped and bounded that they can actually jump through time and dimensions, and I think then you've got a whole nother another group of folks. Not saying that the Xi'an are like that, but I'm saying if they introduce somebody like that, I think that's a whole nother level of technology. But I am curious to see what they're going to do with the alien stuff. We haven't seen a lot of that stuff in the game yet, and I'm sure they've got tons and tons of it in relation to Squadron 42 and stuff they want to release to us in time.
I really like that idea, and I think a way around it could be is that you make those certain type of weapons that maybe you could find or come across and buy that are actually made for the alien ship
Mm-hmm.
that the Asperia is a replica of. You make them bespoke weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're only going to fit in those long arms of the
Yeah.
Banu Defender. They're only going to fit in those slots on the blade or the scythe. And then there could be things too, like you could hook them up to those ships, but they emit more radiation. So
Yeah.
maybe we have to be careful with that because the aliens can tolerate higher levels.
Yeah.
Or maybe you almost have to turn, like the power management system, you almost have to put everything to powering your weapons because they draw so much more power, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. And because right now they should have their own components and stuff. And maybe that is the way to get them. Definitely makes reasons for being able to go, to the black market or outside of UEE to, gain those type of parts. Gives a whole nother level of gameplay for people who have bought those alien ships, But we'll see. We'll see where they go with that.
All right. Next question comes from our trusty questionnaire who I think probably wins the prize for the most number of questions asked on 10 for the Chairman, beer for the beer god, who asks, as a design philosophy, what balance do you intend to strike between immersion and fun? For example, will I have to visit the bar every time I want a job, or will I be able to look up something on my Mobi-Glass and never leave the ship? If I want to load and unload cargo, will I have to do that manually, or can I just have it done while I'm still in my captain's chair? At what point do you declare immersion to be tedious and cut it out?
Good question.
Well, that's a good question. So I think that we want a balance between all this sort of stuff. So, like for instance, on the missions, your Mobi-Glass will probably be your primary interface to sort of what we call the mission brokerage system, which is a little like sort of a Craigslist or so, which if you're over in the US, I think they have Craigslist in other parts of the world too, which would sort of list various jobs you can take and all the rest of the stuff, and that would be sort of your mobiGlas, and that would be sort of sent out over the spectrum in our universe. But then there will also be some missions that won't be available over that setup, and you would potentially have to go to a bar or down a dark alley to get some more kind of dubious or different missions, and that would be a reason to go visit a bar. So we sort of mix it up. So some stuff sort of like you have to go visit the place, forcing you to get out, go into maybe a place you're not so comfortable, and some stuff can be sort of done just like it is in the real world online. And that's kind of the approach. Cargo in general, most of it would be loaded and unloaded while you're off doing other stuff. I think in some cases we've been discussing points where maybe you have to oversee or supervise some stuff in cases like a PvE encounter. Like a scenario could be you're on a sketchy planet and you're unloading some stuff, and a couple of people try to mug you, and you have to fight them off. That's all sort of things that we're playing around with. But again, a fair number of it would be you would come back and you would sort of see the cargo going in or out and things happening without you having to actually personally load it all up yourself, although maybe there'll be some cases where you're the only person that can unload it or load it. So I guess it would sort of depend on the location or the planet. So like if you're in space and you're dumping cargo, or you're putting cargo in that you've just salvaged, let's say, off a wreck, then you will have to actually get out of your ship and make sure it gets into your cargo, or you'll have to have a tractor beam that can pull it into your cargo hold. So I hope that answers the question about the sort of balance. So we don't want to make it too tedious, but we do want to sort of feel like you actually have to do some stuff, and so we sort of strike a balance in between both ways. Okay, just a game.
It's interesting. This question came up about the cargo elevators, the elevators in the game, and loading ships, and people got concerned about loading times. And I think CIG has kind of alleviated a lot of that. I think many of us were thinking about loading, let's say it's a C2. C2 holds 600 and I don't know how many, 642, 628. I forget how many 1SU boxes it holds. And people are like, oh my God, it'll take me forever to load that ship. And then we found out the CIG came out with the container system, right, where we can have up to 32 SCU containers. And so obviously that tremendously reduces the time it takes to load a ship. For those of you who may have done it already using a tractor beam, using the multi-tool, you can see that it does not take long to fill up a C2. If you've got 32 SCU cargo containers, it really does not take that long to do. The ships that have a greater amount of scale will be ships like when you start getting to a hull C, hull D, hull E. But any of those other ships, if you're loading 16 or 32 SCU containers, it's not that big of a deal. I just heard recently that they put the new tractor beam in, not the ones on the ships, but the rifle one. I hear that one's in the game. I haven't yet to monkey around with it, but I heard it's down in the cargo decks. You can purchase that rifle, and supposedly it's very cool. And so I don't think it'll take a lot of time to load ships up. You just have to make sure your people who do it are coordinated and know what they're doing, and that they don't block up things the wrong way. But I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be the big issue that people have worried about hours and hours trying to load up a ship, unless it's on a large scale.
Is going to ask, in your view, is it possible to have a level playing field between someone using OR, I'm assuming that's Oculus Rift, and someone who isn't? Is it even a desirable goal? If not, are there other ways planned to allow for people to get the most out of innovative devices such as Oculus Rift without creating competitive imbalances? That's a good question. We haven't really been able to do a huge amount of sort of testing between someone flying an Oculus Rift.
You use it, Archie? Cool.
Rift. We have sets in all the offices. But the Oculus Rift resolution, even on the high HD set, isn't actually that great at the moment. So you are sort of handicapped with some of the resolution of the stuff comparatively to someone that's playing on a big monitor. But I will say that in say for instance the UK, one of our designers is a huge VR fan, And so he plays with the Oculus Rift all the time against other people, and he's not the top guy. Now that maybe he may not be very good at flying, or the Oculus Rift may not be giving him an overwhelming advantage. I mean, generally the nice thing with the Oculus Rift is it just sort of frees your head look, and you can look around and you can sort of track targets, and it also can happen when you have guns that gimbal, then obviously they'll track that. But don't forget, the gimbaling of the guns is only as fast as the guns will move, so that's not instant. So far, it's not like anyone's put on Oculus Rift and completely dominated everyone else. It's generally been much more down to pilot skill, but I do think that the Oculus Rift gives you more immersion, and potentially could perhaps give two equal pilots an advantage. But we haven't gone far enough into being able to balance all that properly. Okay, next question.
Well, this has come up on several of the shows. People who are concerned about VR. We know CIG is very much interested in VR. They've got a lot of people on their team that are interested, but it is not a priority. So VR will be something that they will tackle later. But I think their biggest priority is getting the game done and getting it out. And VR just becomes kind of like the icing on the cake later for those who are into VR. But I don't think the consumer demand is there either. The amount of gamers and people who have VR or using VR is not as great. It was back then VR was really kind of booming a little bit more. But right now it's still a developing technology.
Comes from Captain Darkstar, who asks,
well, Shimpasta, you dropped in. Did you want to say something before I moved on?
Oh, hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Good. Yeah, I do have one question. So I joined Star Citizen 2021, like IAE of 2021. And for me, this game kind of reminded me of Ready Player One, the book. So I got super excited, and obviously being able to walk around your spaceship and stuff like that. But as I was following the community, why does it feel like the community feels like CIG doesn't know what they're doing? I mean, Chris Roberts has this big background of game development.
Yeah.
And I understand it, and because I've only been a backer for a little bit, I get the frustration if you've been backing for 10 years. But at the same time, I'm also a developer, so I also see oh man, they're doing some really big things here, and it's not the same as other games. And so I don't know. I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's in their feeling is somewhat legitimate in the sense of their own game experiences, right? There's the business side of game development, and then there's the marketing side of development, right? For example, we could unconsciously watch how certain games come out, particularly games that are of a franchise. So let's use something like Call of Duty. Call of Duty may produce a game, maybe every 2 to 3 years, roughly, something like that. And I think that sometimes gamers don't know when games literally start, when they've started working on them. Everything from, concept ideas and artwork and all the things you need to get to pre-production, then production, and then post. And so it's very easy to say Call of Duty came out in 2016, and now 2018, the new one is coming out, or 2019, the new one's coming out. And so we kind of feel that it took them 3 years to produce the next Call of Duty. And quite often that wasn't the case. When it came out in 2019, they started working on it in 2013. And so a lot of gamers don't know that. They think that the game started right after the 2016 one came out. They started working on the next version. And you and I know that is not the case. There's also the growth of games. The games are not the games that they used to be years ago, in the sense of how long it takes to produce a game. And I think that most of the games, when I talk about this being a unique project, there are some, but there aren't a lot of games where the backers were there from literally the day the doors opened at the company when they began. Quite often, we may have started it when it was an indie company, and maybe they had already produced a few games, and now we follow them. But this one is a unique situation. Let me go back to Cyberpunk, for example. Cyberpunk's development, I think, started in 2011, something like that. And, CD Projekt Red had done very well with their Witcher series. And it was a lot of anticipation for that game because Witcher was so well received. and people really kind of felt like, wow, we saw what CD Projekt Red did with Witcher. They've learned some things. When this game comes out, Cyberpunk is going to be amazing. We saw trailers, we saw all this great stuff, and everybody was excited for it. Then when it came out, some people had no problems. Some people had hell of a problems. Some things that they said that they wanted to do, they were unable to do. Multiplayer was not there. There was some impact on what happened with consoles. And there was a lot of things that even though they were given a 10-year period to do that game, they still couldn't deliver. And this is a company that's established, been producing games already, the whole 9 yards. And so there was disappointment, right? And again, giving them 2 years after that, they've been able to bring that game up to a better place. It's not completely where they want it. We saw the same thing happen with No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky got an even shorter range of time to complete what it did when it came out in 2016. Once again, couldn't deliver. Once again, took them 7 more years to get the game finally to the place where they've almost delivered everything that they said they were going to deliver back at E3 in 2013. I think gamers sometimes we're all backseat developers, and we all have in our mind how long we think it should take for a game to come out. But it's also because we're consumers. We've paid for something, and everything else in our life. If I were to pay for a car and I say, I want this car delivered, there's a certain amount of time in my brain that I think it should take for a car to be made and delivered. And if you exceed that time, regardless of what you tell me, no matter how much you tell me the parts are being imported from here and they're all being handmade, I'm still going to say it doesn't take that long to make a car, And so I think in some ways, game development falls into that same category, that sometimes we take our experiences and what we think and what we've seen in other games and what we've watched, and we kind of overlay that onto the project with CIG. Now, I'm not saying that CIG has not had their issues. I am not saying that CIG may have had some things where time management wasn't there, because every company has that. Every business has their times where they succeed and times where they make bad calls and the times when they have failures, right? So I'm not going to try to cover for that, because I think that they have had those times. But I think that they've also shown us that they've been able to produce. And to your point, Shim, you say you're in the industry, you know about development. We need to hear more voices like that, so that maybe it will help people understand that maybe the feelings that they have, we understand why you feel that way, but that's not the way game development works. I don't know if that helped answer some of what you were asking.
Yeah, it definitely did. I think the other thing that I feel the community forgets is that they were also building a company at the same time, and it's like hard to build a company and a product at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely get the frustration and stuff. But this is why I was excited about SitCon this year.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like in past years they told us what they want to do, and in this one they completely flipped it and showed us what they have done.
This is what we've done, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was interesting because a lot of people were like, all right, 2 more years and 2 more years. But to me, I was like, wait, they showed us a whole bunch of features. And then they said these are all in Squadron 42. And then they said Squadron 42 is feature complete. And they're on the polishing phase. So to me, it's like logically, then those features are also feature complete and they're polishing and then, getting the bugs out and stuff. So. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I just got a different take.
Well, there was
I'm in the industry.
Well, there were other things they said too, right? There were some things they said will be in 3.22. There were some things that they actually said. I said this about this particular CitizenCon. This was the first CitizenCon that they had ever really said dates and times with confidence. They stopped doing it years ago, right? Because they would say it and get in trouble. Now, I can tell you where some of the skepticism comes from. It comes from other times when CIG has said they would like to get something done and then it didn't happen. For i.e. the roadmap, right? We're going to bring out the Taurus, this quarter, this year, and then all of a sudden it gets pushed back or it gets delayed or it gets moved or it doesn't come out till a year and a half later. So after several of those false starts and information that goes out, it's very easy for the community to say, yeah, we've heard that before. Like you said, the question after this CitizenCon for most people wasn't like, nah, it's a scam, or they can't do it, or it'll never happen, or it's all a pipe dream. The one thing that people walked away from was when. And that's why, because they've heard it's coming it's almost here. Back in the 2017-18, we used to have this phrase called the Jesus patch, right? The thing that was going to fix the game. A lot of the backers have been through all of that. And over the years, they're not salty, but they are skeptical, because they don't want to put their hope, because many times they put their hopes in and, the enthusiasm thinking was going to come, and then it didn't get delivered and they got disappointed, right? So some of it comes from that, the fact that they've been disappointed before. And basically, they're protecting their head and their heart a little bit because they don't want to be disappointed again. So some ways it's difficult to be too hopeful. We can always be hopeful to a degree, but for many of them, they're not negative about it, but they are kind of, I've been here before. I'll see it when I believe it, or I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. I guess that's where a lot of people may be at this point, where other people feel very optimistic because they do feel like you said, we've moved from the vision years to more of the reality years. And it seems like that's where we are now. And all we can do is hope that they do deliver. I think that they will at this point, because the amount of time has been put in. And I think we've seen enough evidence to say that they feel confident about what they can give us now, So it's a good question.
Yeah. Sorry, I won't take up too much more time, but
okay.
And I think a lot of newer backers have the benefit of watching this stuff on YouTube on like 2.8 or 2x, and being like, oh, all right, cool, land on planets now, instead of just like the traditional cutscene or whatever.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that if I was probably following from the very beginning, I'd probably feel the same way. So, but I think it's kind of cool that it is attracting newer people, and I think those new people continue to flame the fire. And it's just exciting to see where this game's going. And being a technologist, it's exciting to see where the tech's going.
Yeah.
Because my mind goes to quantum computing with the whole, how are they going to reduce all the pings and all the delays across the world? And I'm like, wait until quantum computing comes out, and I wonder what's going to happen then.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's still a lot of technological leaps, but also a lot of technological advances that could happen with Star Citizen and gaming in general. So we'll have to see. But I do believe that we're really on the verge of seeing the game being delivered in a way, because they put in so much hard work to lay the foundation down. And like anything else, right? When you see a building being built, they spend weeks, if not months, a lot of times underground laying the foundation. But once that foundation's laid, you see the building go up really quick. And I really think that that's kind of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Glaze,
thanks.
Go ahead. You were going to say?
I was going to say, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for dropping in. Appreciate the comment. And thanks again. And thanks for sharing from someone who's in the industry side of it. A lot of times there are people who come in and say, I don't do game development, but I do this. And, what I see them doing, I may not understand it, but I think that they're on the right track, or this is just kind of what comes with the turf. And I think that players and backers need to hear that, because we need to hear people who are in the industry. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with people in the industry even questioning and saying, well, I'm not sure this direction they're going. But I say this all the time. The transparency aspect of CIG is both extreme in the sense of we're seeing a lot, but there's also a lot we don't see. And we have to kind of temper the fact that what information we have is not the whole picture. You know what I mean? We're only seeing part of it. And it's difficult not to want to draw a conclusion to say whether or not CIG is doing it right, or whether they're on time or behind schedule or ahead of schedule, because we just don't have all the information in front of us. What we do have is the game in front of us, and the fact that we want to play the game. And quite often when we can't play the game, we become very frustrated. It's also funny too, when there's something in the game that affects us, there's something wrong with the game. When there's something in the game that doesn't affect us, the game is great. You know what I mean? So like if I like doing delivery missions, box delivery missions, and they decide to say you can't make 20,000 anymore, but now you're making 5,000. Well, now there's something wrong with the game. You know what I mean? But when I was making 20,000, the game was great. I think we also have to be careful not to forget that they are testing, that they're still testing features. The reason why they dropped it from 20,000 to 5,000 is because they're testing something else in the game. Maybe they got the data and the analytics they needed. So now they need me to go test something else. Otherwise, I'll just keep doing box missions. I don't know. I'm sure they have their reasons for why things fluctuate and change. But like you said, there are some pretty smart people working at CIG. I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah, just one more thing with the whole pyro. what's it called, like hab, mowing down people coming out of the habs.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first experience with pyro. As soon as I woke up, I was excited to get out. As soon as I got on my hab, I got mowed down. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah.
But as bad as that was, I kind of look at it like it's good that it happened now, and even if it was accidental,
Mm-hmm.
because then people won't in the future be like, well, CIG needs to make no armistice zones and blah, 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 because now they accidentally did that and they saw what the repercussions were or what the havoc it caused, or maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
And so I think I look at it as like it's really good when that does happen because then the community can voice their opinion really loudly.
Yeah.
And then it allows them to kind of navigate a little bit better as well. So as annoying as that was getting mowed down at, coming out of my hab in my white suit with nothing on me.
Yeah.
I was like, I think, it was annoying, but maybe it's a good thing because they can make a case for those people who are like no armistice zones anywhere in the game. They can make a case like, well, we already tried that and this is what happened. And so, I think it's just going to be ongoing. And
it also gives them room to say, when they look at their analytics in the community comment, how many people liked it? How many people didn't? And where do we find the middle ground in that, right? Is there a middle ground? Is there a way to make it so that the going into pyro stations or spawning in is a dangerous thing, but there's still a piece of leverage for you to still be able to come into the game that it minimizes the risk. You know what I'm saying? The risk is higher, but you minimize it. So an armistice zone, okay, first of all, waking up in your hab shouldn't be shouldn't be a problem. You know what I mean? Just waking up. You know what I mean? There shouldn't be somebody standing over your bed to pop you in the head as soon as you wake up. Okay. But there is, and I think I shared some suggestions the other day. I won't go all into that again, but I think that what they can do is find ways. And it's interesting to see how the community responds to that. And I don't want to sidetrack from the 10 for chairman too much, but I will say this. There was a real big thing that came up with Burks, and I haven't finished watching this yet. I don't know if you saw the thing that came up with Burks, but Burks evidently came to the rescue of folks and then got pushback for it. So
I did not see that.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was, but there's some videos going out this week that are talking about it. But he got pushback for coming in and being the white knight to push back against the people who were griefing the people at the doors. So, again, there's a lot that comes out of this that maybe everybody needs to look at, right? And CIG especially, to say, spawning in at pyro, is dangerous, just like flying into pyro is dangerous. But there needs to be a leverage that gives everybody an opportunity to do something. But I don't know what that's going to be, But like you said, if there was ever a time for it to happen, this is the time for it to happen, right? And this is the time where we get to give our feedback for it. So absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And just so I don't keep talking and like extending your time here, I just have one more question. It's more just for you to answer, I guess. So watching these older letters of the chairman, how do you think next year's letter of the chairman is going to go?
Well, here's the deal. Chris did these back from late 2013 through, I think, 2014. Okay. And, he does put out the posts that he puts out from time to time. I think the next one that we'll get will probably be between as we get ready to leap to 4.0. And God knows, we hope that that's, next year. They've definitely said 3.2.2 is the last quarter of this year. Will there be a 2.3? I'm not so sure. I don't think there will be, only because we know that they're trying to work on the static server meshing now and getting Pyro out. And 4.0 is, as you know, a leap. Just like when we went to 3.0, that was not only a feature leap, but it was a technical leap in relation to the game and where the game development was. So assuming that there is no 3.23, assuming that there's just a 3.22 plus whatever 0.1.2 with that, but then we do 4.0, I think that's when Chris will talk about what that means with us moving into that next phase of development. And that may expand into talking about not only the persistent universe, but also maybe some announcement in relation to a follow-up to where Squadron 42 is, from CitizenCon. That those may be the two items that'll come up in that letter. But I think that might be where they go next time. So we'll see. Hope that answers the question.
Nice. Thanks again.
Okay, sure. Hey, buddy. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you. All right, let's get through the rest of this episode, y'all.
Star, who asks, if you discover a jump point and immediately explore the system after the jump, are you able to claim some of the land on any planets you discover inside the system once you report the jump point intel to the UE authorities? Don't have a great answer for that because we still haven't really decided on whether you can actually like own like a planet or a land or a portion of land at all. So you can definitely navigate a jump point, get to name it, get to name a system, and potentially if there was an area like an asteroid, derelict asteroid base or whatever, you could land on that and sort of control it or claim it for yourself. But I'm not sure that we're going to currently let people land on like a barren planet and say, yep, this is, you know, Chris World or something like that. So we do want to have a certain level of player controlled terrain, but right now that's sort of kind of limited to the sort of space station, asteroid bases, the stuff that you can find in space, or a big capital ship. But longer term, you know, we are thinking about, well, is there ways to do that on some land? So I think that ultimately will get into the game. I'm not sure it'll be in there in V1, if that makes sense. Okay, next.
This goes back to the whole thing about claiming planets and moons. I don't think that's going to be realistic. Yeah, hey, Lady Space Patrol. Yeah, we do have the land claims. Again, this was 2014. We got land claims, I think, in 2017. Absolutely. Definitely be able to put your stake down and have your little plot of land. I know there are people who are ambitious who say they're going to take over a moon. I think you can take over a portion, a part, a section if you have a big enough group. But even then, you know, we'll see how that goes. Taking over a whole... Yeah, whatever.
I just want to say, like, if you don't think I'm going to find a new system, and I can't call it the Kusanagi system, I'm going to have problems.
It actually sounds like a name of a system, believe it or not. Your
it
name
does.
actually
It sounds like the
work.
Kusanagi system sounds
that does
ominous
work.
and like mysterious and stuff like that. You know, like, ooh, what's there?
You know,
a black hole?
Something that we didn't talk about, to your point, Admiral, is the fact that there's what we know in the game, and then there's also room for what we don't know in the game. That there could be a jump point that is not on the map. There are going to be ones that will be temporarily jumped in, but I'm talking about literally a system that is not quote unquote map. There's no reason why that could not be the case, especially when it comes to the idea of exploration. What we have in the ARC map is areas that we know that have been discovered, but CIG has implied that there will be explorable areas, places that have never been found before. And so it will be really interesting. In fact, one of the things, Admiral, I don't know if you got a chance, I haven't got a chance to finish watching it, but on the SCL from last week, they talked about, and I said this before, that when they put us into the persistent universe, I hope they wipe the maps clean. All you know is that there are planets there, but in some areas, the certain settlements and things like that, I think they should be discoverable. I don't think that we should get the map with everything already in there. Now, if you decide you want to buy the data from somewhere or buy it from someone, that's a whole nother thing. But I think it should be explorable. Did somebody raid me? Did Montoya raid me? Montoya raided me. Hey, thank you, Montoya. I checked earlier. You weren't on. I didn't think you were on today. Thank you for the raid. Thank you, Raiders. Thank you for coming over. Hey, Athy. Thank you so much. Ruben, thank you for the follow. TFSX Pasternak, thank you for the follow as well. Firebrand, thank you for the follow. Hope you guys had a good stream hanging out with Montoya. Citizen Ninja, what's going on? Rain, what's going on? Good to see you. Justig, thank you. Montoya Blah, yeah. Same to you, buddy. Mazel tov. Okay. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see if they do put in these things in the game that we just know absolutely nothing about, that you absolutely can stumble across, and in some way or other, you discovering it can be attributed in game lore. They talked about that. I don't necessarily care about it being a world, but yeah, you know, if they find something that you and they name it the Kusanagi system, God bless you, Admiral. Maybe they will do that. Okay, let's see what else we got.
This question comes from Jaquito De Royo, who asks, I was wondering if the game is going to output telemetry data for advanced sim cockpits with gimbals and MFDs. Well, yeah, potentially. I mean, we've talked about building like the ultimate sort of Star Citizen like sim seat thing where you can move around and stuff. and CryEngine actually does already have sort of some kind of support for that because they also use it for sort of real military simulation work. So potentially for the cockpit gimbal stuff, that's the sort of project that we'll play around with. And we have talked about doing secondary displays, like on a tablet or something, if you want to be able to put off weapons or status display. But not promising that as a feature for V1.0. It's sort of a kind of fun and play with it and try and get it there if we can. It's sort of like an internal project, but we've got a bunch of other stuff to do first. So don't get on my case if it's not done in the next 3 weeks. Okay, next.
All right, Chris, stay away from hardware. Stay away from hardware. We've seen, we saw when they were trying to put out the mouse and keyboard and stuff. Do you guys remember that? And then remember at one point they were monkeying around with a camera. Remember that? So that you'd be able to do the face over stuff, and all that stuff disappeared. It all stayed software based. So stick with the software, Chris. Really don't. Yeah, that's just me, you guys. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't want them worrying about joysticks and keyboards and cockpit seats and all the other stuff. Just make it so it's compatible with other stuff, and that's all you got to do. That's as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, we'll see what they do from years to come. I don't know.
Question comes from Dream Rider, who asks, "Hello, Chris. Do you think that the first race course might make it in soon after DFM V1, or when do you think we might get to test racing?" Well, we are working on the race course right now, and
you still want the flight stick out.
Shooting to have it available sometime right after DFM V10. And
Just Dig. You remember that
later
thing.
on this year at Gamescom, we'll probably be demoing and previewing a whole bunch of stuff, including that and some other cool stuff. So if you're going to be near Gamescom, it would be cool to see you there. If not, we will definitely always be sharing it for the worldwide audience via the web. All right.
It is interesting that racing has become very popular. Not interesting. I mean, we knew it was going to become popular. It's become popular. It's one of the first things that CIG put out was being able to race an old whatever it's called, Vanderbilt, Vanderhall, whatever it is. That racing is still very, very popular. In fact, those of you who are following Star Atlas, they have almost followed the exact model that CIG has. They did their hangar area first, which they call the showroom. And then after that, they've implemented racing. So, they're following on the same track for development. There's a reason why they're doing that. Let's see. What my concern is, though, Stig, with that SciTech, you guys have known the problems that people have with joysticks, the wear on them, if they're not built well, and then if you do get them that are built well, they're not very costly, but they cost a lot of money, especially back then. Back then, the Warthog was the thing, and the Warthog was like $495. Anything less than that, even with SciTech and them putting out the X52, the X55 and stuff, they were still kind of 50-50. Some people had them with no problems. Other people had to send them into the manufacturer a couple of times. And that's the thing that I wanted CIG to stay away from. That thing that they came up with looked so cool. But guys, it had an LCD screen, lights. It had all this stuff that was definitely bound to be buggy. So I was just like, it looks cool, but finish the game. Work on the game. But that's just me. All right. Let's see the next question.
All right, last question comes from Traveling Matt, who asks, manufacturers continually update their designs or drop them and replace them with new models. Will ships in Star Citizen be built on a similar base, where the 2944 Aurora gives way to the updated 2945 Aurora? It will be interesting to see if a classic ship market emerges, or if a particular series of ships become highly sought after for some reason or another. That is a great suggestion. It's also something we're actually doing. I mean, we did for the Aurora. In case you don't remember, the 2943 Aurora was the first Aurora that you backed for, and then we launched the brochure for the Aurora last year, which was the updated 2944, introducing the Legionnaire variant. And we definitely plan to upgrade and change the ships as we go along. In fact, if you actually take a look at the Hornet at the very beginning, the Hornet in V hangar that was released in August, and you look at the Hornet you have now in dogfighting, they are fairly different. The Hornet's gone through quite a lot of changes, looks a lot better. It's moved to PBR. It's had higher res textures, more geometry added to it. The same has also happened for the 300i. It's had a significant upgrade. And I think that we will sort of be following the car model, where we'll sort of be occasionally upgrading the ships and also upgrading their performance and changing around the stuff, because I think it would be very cool to make it like cars, where models change out, and then of course you can have a collector's edition, or something that, like, well, this is the 1965 Corvette was a classic, and I love tooling around in it. So yeah, I think that's very much in the spirit, and it's definitely something we're doing. So great question, Traveling Matt. And that brings us to the end of this episode of 10 for the Chairman. A little vanilla today. I didn't have any props or gifts to show off, so but next episode hopefully I will. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting and backing the project. Without all your support, we couldn't make this incredibly ambitious and incredibly fun game. Really look forward to reading the feedback and the comments. It's really great and interesting seeing sort of how things are moving with Arena Commander. I mean, we've got a lot of work still to do. We've got a lot of balancing on exactly how the IFCS works, the input mechanisms, and a whole bunch of other polished stuff that we have. So we're all working really hard on it, but we all really appreciate your feedback. It's great to see people sort of move and evolve, and hopefully within as time goes on, we get more and more people into the multiplayer, because I'm really looking forward to the point where everyone can be playing against each other, and we're also sort of balancing the ships and adding more items in, and sort of seeing how the systems that we've built kind of adapt to everyone's tactics and flight styles and all the rest of the stuff. So having a great time. Again, thank everyone for backing. Thank the subscribers for allowing us to do this extra level of content, and I will see you next week.
Alrighty then. Yeah, that's this week's 10 for the Chairman. We knocked out a couple episodes today, episodes 26 and 27. How did you guys feel about them? I remember when the Blade, or not the Blade, when the Vanduul ships were shown, the new Vanduuls, the Blade, the Scythe, and the, what's the other one called? I forget what the other one's called. The Blade, Scythe, and the Glaive. And there were people who said, that's cool, but I still like the old version. And you just said something that I think is important. You said having a year series would give them good incentive to update ships, but once they clear the backlog of Gold Standard, or whatever the final version is, I know what you're saying when you say that. And I agree, because they can't keep the old ships in the game if the tech changes. They have to upgrade them eventually. But would you guys be interested, like if they put out, like they said that when Squadron comes out, the new Vanduul ships are going to come out. Would you like for them to keep the old designs in? Some people, I remember when the 300 series got updated, there were a lot of people who did not like the new design. I loved it. But there are a lot of people who liked that earlier design because they liked the harder lines. They didn't like the softer edges that were put on the newer series. What are you guys feeling about that? Would you like for them to say, here's the original versions, and you could get them like almost like your antique, right? To collect them? Or would you, and I know it's more work, and that's something that they could do later. They could put out the 2944 edition. Not, I wouldn't want them to slow down things to make those ships. But I'm just kind of curious. What do you guys think about that? Yeah, it would be cool for collectors. Lefty, I think people should have a choice. Yeah, unless it makes tech an asset. Yeah, again, right, Lefty. They don't have to do it right now, but once they've got the ships locked down and where they want, they could put out I know the Zeus. People were looking forward to hoping that they were going to put out the original Zeus. That would be kind of cool for them to do, but afterward, right, later on. Now, question
I
is,
always fall back.
What'd you say?
I always fall back to the original Cutlass Black with the trash can, functionality.
That was bad design, though. That was bad design.
Well, because that's what you're talking about. You want the Cutlass Black back with those things just moving all over the place. Because I was shocked to see them. I know that the ship is kind of, people still use this, but the ship in the Squaddy 42 trailer in the beginning, those two fighters, and it had the thrusters that kind of popped up and then they hid back down again. I was like, oh my god, that's ridiculous.
But that's the new one. That's the new version. Because remember the old version. Remember the old version had those radiators in the front with the fan spinning. Do you remember that on the old Hornet? If you go back and watch the original trailer, do you don't remember that, Admiral?
On the original Hornet?
Yeah, when Chris did his very first presentation of the Hornet. And like right at the nose, there were these two fans that were spinning like this.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't want those in. Those look like cooling units. I'm like, you know what? They're in space. You don't need it.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, would people want those available to them if they wanted to get them later in? They may want them because it was the original Hornet. You know, I wouldn't want to fly one, but you know, I'm just curious as to whether people would want it. That'd be pretty interesting. Is he coming in from two sources? Okay, yeah, it might be.
I don't know. Am I?
Yeah, it might be something goofy on my end, Lefty. Thanks. I like how the old ships can still be in game, flying around in the cities. That's pretty interesting. Okay, first brand. Yeah, the Connie actually got 3 reworks. Gladestone. We're on the 4th one now, the Mark IV. Remember the earlier version was almost just like a white and gray. It's completely different. The layouts were different. Everything was different about those ships. The exterior was even a little different. It's still reminiscent, but over the years, the Connie has had, I think this is their 4th version of it.
Bless you.
Thank you. So yeah, that one is definitely one of the ones that got a definite rework. But we do know those Anvil ships. God bless the Anvil series of ships with the Hornets. They definitely need some love. The Gladiator needs some love. What else needs some love? It's an old ship.
What's that bomber that is just so
the Gladiator.
Stupid old?
The Gladiator.
The Gladiator?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anvil's
Yeah.
Gladiator. Yeah, that one definitely needs some love. The Mustangs have had a rework. They've had 2 reworks.
Can we rebuild the Aurora?
I meant to say the Auroras. Thank you. The Auroras have had 2 reworks. That one, there was that one cool looking version where people made the wing shoot out that I thought was pretty neat. That was reminiscent of how the Antares and stuff look, but I don't think they'll ever do that. But the Mustangs have had 1 rework. I'm trying to go back to all the older ships. Those I think have all just about. Oh, and of course the Freelancer series, which we know now they are working on. They're doing putting in components and physicalizing those ships. So I think we've got that rework coming because we've got the new design model for that. We've seen that in the Hull A, the Hull C, the new sleeker look that's inside of those. I think the Freelancers are all going to be moved up to that.
Regarding the blade, it's just like I have the blade. Yeah. I don't have the glaive or anything like that, but
I've got the blade.
I mean, they're just like really old designs, and I feel like the new stuff is
the blade's got the new design.
Well, they all have new designs. I'm saying like the and they're getting newer designs when Squadron 42 comes out, but I'm saying like the glaive and
the glaive doesn't. Yeah, the glaive and the scythe are still old.
And all that.
Yeah, the glaive and the scythe are still the old version. Yeah,
but the blade is getting the new one too.
The blade is the new one. I don't know if it's much different. Yeah, look at it. It's the same ship. It's the same ship. It doesn't look
slimy, or I swear to God, that thing looks slimy in that video or something.
The blade?
Yeah, they all look like they're
the one that looks like the Batarang.
They all look like they got like Klingon spit on it, and they just like flying in space now.
I don't know which blade you're talking about. The black. You're talking about the black. No, the black dull Batarang looking blade. That one.
Potentially.
No. I'm talking about that's the one that's in the game.
The blade, yeah, the blade, yeah.
The Batarang looking.
I think it's getting an update. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have any of the current Vandal ships in the upcoming Squadron 42 update. I know they may have updated the blade years ago, but I think because it was like maybe the last Vandal ship we got or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think we'll
have to go back and look at that trailer that shows the new version of them. I'll go back and look because I thought that this was pretty close to that one, but maybe.
I can pull the current, and because I know it, I think it did get better, but I don't know if it's the final version.
Okay, well, it might be, and I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't being tweaked for the final
I hope I sound a little better now. I got a T-shirt over my mic,
no,
so
you're
to kind of cut down the echo.
You're good. Just waiting for an Anvil Capital ship. Yeah, I know, Pastor Nick. There's a lot of people who want that Anvil cap. You know, I'm not a fan either way, but I will say this: by lore, for Aegis to have them and RSI to have them, but Anvil being a big contractor for the UEE, for them not to have them, that is kind of weird. That the Liberator is like the closest thing that they have, and that's definitely not hitting the level of a cap. A lot of people have been asking for it. I think CIG is going to give something eventually, to be honest with you, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. You guys are making me want to get into the Vandal Swarm master modes. Don't start the alien killing, Lefty. I reckon spaceships will have longer lifespans, like 5,200 years before being replaced. Yeah, that is part of the thing. That's why some of the ships are as old as they are. They're kind of like in our military. Some ships have been around since the 1970s, 60s. They, keeps on ticking. That's real. Must have flown through everything that flies through there. Looks like it got covered in clean spit. Okay, Stunner. All right. Well, listen, guys, thank you all for joining me, for hanging out with us today. I really, really appreciate it. Montoya, as always, thank you for sending the love over, sending your folks over that joined you today. Once again, I hope you had a great stream. And don't forget, IAE is just 3 days away, right? 4 days away? 4 days away. So a lot of good stuff coming. Hold your wallets, hide your wallets. Wait till the event is over with. Support the project if you're enthused. We're gonna say, Admiral?
I'm sure on Thursday you're going to talk about the new RSI ship that leaked today.
We're going to talk about that on Thursday after the community show this week. We're going to cover a little bit of all three of the ships that are coming out, and talk about them a little bit. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil things for everybody. But yes, everybody knows. They said there were going to be surprises. There is some stuff that's going to be coming out. But then again, the schedule came out, by the way, for it. So if you guys want to see what ships are going to be shown and what days, they put an enhanced thing up on the RSI website. You guys can check that out when you get time. Again, thank you, Gladestone, for stopping in. Stunner, thank you for stopping in. Admiral Kusanagi, thank you for stopping in. Shimpasta, first time coming in. Good to hear you. Thanks for stopping in. And thank you guys for all the follows. Game Overture, thank you. Danger Hobo, good to see you. Firebrand, thank you. Ruben Soros, thank you as well. And again, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Be back on Thursday, 12 noon, to follow up talking about Star Citizen this week. And we are going to set you guys up to go over and raid our good friend Space Tomato. He's having fun in the verse right now. When you get over there, let him know you came over from Griff. And as always, you guys stay safe, take care of yourselves, and as always, peace, love, and soul. See you soon. Peace.